Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Now, Congress just provided $500 million in February to address the humanitarian crisis at the border, and will soon provide more. Why do these tragedies keep happening?
So, they're happening because the crisis is exceeding the resources provided. That's why we've asked for more. And we've asked for more authority to deal with it, to prevent this crisis from happening in the first place and from the children being put at risk. We've deployed medical practitioners. We now have over 100 certified medical practitioners in our two busiest sectors.
Right, but
we've
people
asked
keep
for more
dying,
money
sir.
to extend that.
People keep dying, and so this is obviously more than a question of resources. Congress has been more than willing to provide the resources and work with you to address the security and humanitarian concerns, but at this point, with 5 kids that have died, 5,000 separated from their families, I feel like, and the evidence is really clear, that this is intentional. It's intentional. It's a policy choice being made on purpose by this administration, and it's cruel and inhumane. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
I make a motion that the lady's words be taken down.
Motion dies for lack of a second. We already died. Counsel had asked me to ask Ms. Underwood to clarify her statement for the record.
I will be happy to, Mr. Chairman. I said that this is more than a question of resources. Congress has been more than willing to provide resources and to work with you, Mr. Secretary, to address these security and humanitarian concerns. And at this point, with 5 children dead and 5,000 separated from their families, this is intentional. It's a policy choice being made on purpose by this administration, and it's cruel and inhumane. I yield back.
And you cannot impugn the character of the witness by in stating that he intentionally murders children. That is completely inappropriate, and her words should be taken down. She was very explicit.
Well, and I asked her to rephrase it. She just did.
She did not. She restated it.
I restated. I did not say murder. I said that 5 children have died as a result of a policy choice that he has said.
You said it was intentional.
Excuse me, sir.
That
I'm
is
still
murder.
talking. He has said that he stands by the policy decisions of this administration. That's what he said at the beginning of his testimony. And he says he stands by the budget request. This is a policy choice.
And he has said the policy is they stopped those detentions. They don't do it in those separations. He's made that clear repeatedly. You refused to listen to him. That's not the point. You said he intentionally supported policies that caused the death of children. That is wrong. Your words need to be taken down, Mr. Chairman.
No, Mr. Ranking member, this happened this week. Yesterday, another child died under his leadership.
Because we can't get the resources to help them. That's what he's here trying to get, is the money to stop this.
The chair rules that the language is appropriate and that it should not be taken down. For what purpose does the gentleman seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I appeal the ruling of the chair.
The gentleman from Alabama moves to appeal the ruling of the chair. The question now appears, shall the ruling of the chair stand and the ruling of the committee? Those in favor of opposing the chair's opinion, vote aye. Those opposed, vote nay.
There are 9 yeas and 7 noes.
The words will be taken down.
It is Friday, the 24th of May of 2019, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. And I might add at the beginning here, I think we need a sip or two of our French 77s after that tete-a-tete. How dare they? Representative Lauren Underwood's comments in committee on the separated and dead kids in ICE custody. I mean, that's what she was talking about. And she stated a fact that it is a policy choice being made on purpose by this administration, and it's cruel and inhumane. That was what she said, and the GOP in committee said they have to strike those words from the record. And they did. Why and how? Somehow, we have a majority in the House as Democrats, and yet that committee didn't have enough Democrats to beat back this spurious charge by the GOP in committee? What? All right. Now, her statement is a fact. The cruelty is the purpose. They have stated as such. Stephen Miller has been on public record stating exactly that. Because by being cruel and inhumane, their idea is that these animals will finally get some sort of operant conditioning and stop coming here. Oh, and what else is going on? William Barr is given unfettered power to declassify everything he wants in the intelligence community. Boy, wait till he gets into a territorial battle with each of these intelligence divisions. Oh my. Because I gotta tell you, I know a little bit about the intelligence community. Just a little. And what I know is that, boy, they're not really happy when someone encroaches in their space. I don't know. It seems rather obvious. I sort of hate going around into the public arena here and just local. There's a lot of Trumpers here. And I wonder, do they know what the hell is going on? Do they even care if they did? This effort, decades long, inexorably pulling us to the right, to the right, to the right. And we are the angry left. We are somehow some kind of danger. These right-wingers, I got to tell you, on the local level, right-wingers have a certain latent fear that liberals, and especially liberals that might be black or brown, are going to kill them in their sleep. Yet if you look at the record, the people getting killed in their sleep are people who want to extend rights to more people, and the ones doing the killing are these right-wing terrorists. But we're not supposed to know that now, are we? How is it that Barr has unfettered power to declassify anything in the intelligence community, but he can't turn over the grand jury testimony to Congress, meaning the enemy? And I'm not talking about necessarily Congress being the enemy, but the Democrats in power in Congress are the enemy of the state. It's important to remember McCarthy's statement. That recording is resurfacing. Of course, it took a year for it to be leaked after the fact. Would have been nice to know it at the time now, wouldn't it have? But regardless, McCarthy and Paul Ryan in what they thought was a very closed door and private meeting. But somebody had made a tape. I'm telling you. I guess. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but check out your catering staff. Really. I mean, really. Nonetheless, McCarthy stating that there are two people being paid directly by Putin. Dana Rohrabacher, and Donald Trump. And there was a little nervous twittering laugh by the other GOP members there. And McCarthy was said to have raised his hands. You can hear on the tape saying, no, I'm serious. And then Paul Ryan steps in and gently moves McCarthy aside and says, now, of course, we keep this information here among us because that's how you can tell that we are a family. Now, the transcripts of that exchange have Paul Ryan saying that exact word, but they did not capitalize family. Because what he meant is this is how you can tell we are a mob family. Not a family of brother and sister and mom and dad and maybe our cousins, maybe first cousins, and they live next door anyway, and so they're really family too, and no one says bad things about the family. No, we're not talking about that family. Please. And here we are. Trump's concierge having unfettered power in which to declassify intelligence information, like maybe who in Russia is working for the United States. And I'm not talking about drilling oil wells or platforms or even working for Putin's chef, catering. What I'm talking about are assets working in Russia on our behest and giving us information about what the hell is going on. Maybe Bill Barr wants to find out who they are. And maybe they'll just be conveniently poisoned with polonium and America will be great again. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Go ahead, take a sip. The French 77s are lovely today. Oh my. Hours after Trump said Congress can't legislate, the House and Senate passed a $19.1 billion disaster relief funding bill. Well, I'm happy about that. Trump's EPA is cooking the books to justify its attack on clean air rules. And I got to tell you, I'm not happy about that. And Trump's attempts to turn Jews against the Democratic Party have failed spectacularly. Who's not happy about that? After the break, we move to the chef's table where the Libya Coast Guard rescued 290 migrants off the eastern coast of Tripoli. Yeah, they were clinging to an overturned craft. Wow. And Justin Trudeau apologized and posthumously exonerated a Cree chief unjustly imprisoned for treason more than 130 years ago. Well, actually, that might portend something positive. All those people now being charged with treason and looking at a death penalty by Trump have a chance to be apologized to and exonerated about 130 years from now. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the rightish of the page is the chat room link monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the leftish of from the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice the link to the Patreon space where you can become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. And that recurring contribution, folks, goes a long way to continuing this resistance that is 8 years long and counting. And thank you very much for your generosity. We are saving money again to buy some new-ish machinery because the ones that we bought halfway through this endeavor have begun to wear out, and we got to get newer ones now. These will still continue working until they don't. That's how we do it. And your generosity helps us continue, as I've stated. So thank you so much for that. Follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. Thank you, Tom. He takes care of that and puts out a few pithy remarks, too. He does. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. Also, check out the show notes and links diary that I post on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime. And then I try to get them up on social media, the links up on social media as quickly as possible as well. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and of course, pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Wherever. If I might be so bold as to offer a bit of writing that I've done, it being Memorial Day weekend, this is about Memorial Day weekend. Way back in 1994, and that, of course, that was the 50-year anniversary of D-Day, the storming of Normandy, and the French believed the saving of France, the beginning of the saving of France. This is from a piece that I've been working on called My Little French Honeymoon. One time, we were driving from Paris to La Tranche-sur-Mer out on the Atlantic coast of France and passed through Reims, headquarters of the National Front, run by Le Pen. "Do you smell that?" she asked. I took a whiff of air and said, "I don't know. What is it?" "It smells like..." She paused momentarily, scrunching her nose in a disgusted expression before continuing. "It smells like fascism." I don't know, but it made me love her even more fiercely. Flora told me a story on the way to her mother's family home in Brittany. I took a photo on the way there that's entitled Tournesol in the Fields of Normandy, France. And then also another one that I entitled House Ruins of Poet Saint-Paul Roux at Brittany, France. Well, her story became a poem that is emblematic of, well, at least for me, the solemnity of Memorial Day. And I entitled it A Windy Day in Normandy. Your floral print dress, a breeze across fields of sunflower and lavender. You told me the story of the tragedy of your family, your grandfather on his mailman bicycle, the delivery of resistance correspondence, the fear of discovery, and then the inevitable retaliation against the village, an uncle hung in the square a few weeks short of the liberation. I watched your tears as you prayed near the soldier multitude of white crosses and the occasional Star of David, here and there even, an alabaster crescent moon. You wept for them all as the Tournesol faced west. Your dress clung in folds, and your red hair framed the history of your familial grief. Josh Israel of Think Progress brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bipartisanship? It must exist, and it does. Somehow, congressional leaders agreed yesterday, Thursday, to a $19.1 billion disaster relief bill, rebuffing Donald Trump's demand that the legislation include more funding for border security, and the Senate later passed the measure by a vote of 85-8. Well, apparently the Grim Reaper can't kill them all, in this reporter's opinion. According to Senator Richard Shelby, sometimes Repug of Alabama, chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Trump has agreed to sign the deal even though lawmakers took out all of his requested border money. Wait a second. He's not going to sign it until all the investigations into his crimes cease and desist. And he puts everybody who investigate him for those crimes under the threat of death. And then he'll start talking about he'll start talking about disaster relief. Trump charged on Wednesday and again on Thursday that the Democratic-controlled House of Reps was doing nothing and was incapable of legislating while also conducting its constitutionally required oversight duty of investigating the president. He walked out of a scheduled bipartisan meeting with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, promising not to do anything about the nation's crumbling infrastructure until Congress stopped investigating him and his administration. But with lawmakers eager to come to a conclusion on disaster relief to the Southeast, Midwest, California, and to Trump's consternation, Puerto Rico, with all those brown people. Ew. And he's seen them in New York, and he hates them. He hates them with a passion. Well, they simply reached a bipartisan deal and told the president that they were going to move on afterward. You know, it's Bob Dylan's birthday today. Most likely, they'll go their way, and Trump will go his. Shelby and Senator David Perdue, another repug from this time from Georgia, reportedly cut the deal together and formed the White House. It's a good deal. This disaster issue is played on for months and months, Shelby said. Though Trump reportedly agreed to sign it, he has in the past changed his mind because he makes promises and breaks them. That's how he does business. Trump is currently facing several investigations surrounding allegations of obstruction of justice, outlined in Special Counsel Mueller's report, as well as inquiries into his personal and business finances, an official inaugural committee. He has rebuffed attempts to subpoena key documents, setting up the two sides for an extended legal battle. The longer he's able to extend it, the longer he stays out of jail. Kyla Mandel of Think Progress brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. In what experts call a deeply cynical strategy that puts lives at risk, the EPA, Trump's EPA, is cooking the books to get around those pesky rules. Well, EPA is working to distort the way it measures the benefits of some of the agency's most impactful policies, regulations that safeguard human health by limiting air pollution. And the primary beneficiary of such distortion? The coal industry, the dying coal industry. When the government evaluates the health and financial benefits of clean air, the calculation typically incorporates the number of lives saved and the scale of reduced health impacts thanks to reducing pollution, also known as co-benefits. Incorporating these factors into a cost-benefit analysis forms the very foundation upon which many environmental protections are based. Well, when you come from say a culture that Trump might come from, in which you would take toxic material and just dump it in the Hudson River. You, in the process, though, get paid extra for taking this dangerous material to an EPA sanctioned site in which to dispose of it. You take those monies, the extra monies, because it takes extra effort to transport those safely. You take those monies, transport it unsafely, and then dump it in the Hudson River. Those stupid, pesky rules are for the little people. But now, experts warn the EPA is opening the door to industry challenges to these clean air rules by changing the way it evaluates the long-accepted science on the risk of particulate matter. Microscopic particles polluting the air that are linked to increased heart attacks, strokes, and respiratory diseases. I keep telling everybody, property is always more valuable when delivered vacant to a hostile foreign power. The agency may also be laying the groundwork, experts say, for using these biased and misleading calculations in other policy contexts. If it works in one place, it could work everywhere. That fear was stoked anew by a new EPA memo released this week, ushering in a formal process to change the way the agency calculates its cost-benefit analysis across a slew of issues, from water pollution to pesticides. Well, actually, you can now have a minimum daily requirement of pesticides. It'll be good for you. That's what the Trump EPA will say. Many experts warn that there is no scientific basis to the EPA's reported approach to assuming there are little to no health benefits from reducing pollution as much as possible. And the methodology is expected to be made public in June as part of its Affordable Clean Energy Rule rollout. I actually think that with Barr in charge here, who can classify and declassify, this will be a state secret. The EPA's current agenda is to mislead and misrepresent the harms of the current Trump rollback agenda. John Walke, Clean Air Director and Senior Attorney at the Natural Resources Defense Council, told Think Progress. But he added, there is also a future dimension to handcuff the EPA and prevent them from protecting Americans and the environment. Singer of Charbleau Media brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Trump has tried to push the Exodus movement to encourage Jews to leave the Democratic Party, but a new poll shows his efforts have failed miserably. Trump and his Republican allies in Congress have led a smear campaign against Democratic lawmakers, falsely painting them as anti-Semitic and urging Jews to leave the Democratic Party. Well, it's the same sort of strategy when the Republicans tell the world that the Democratic Party is the party of the plantation. Why would blacks want to be there? Why? Well, this ridiculous campaign to try to get Jews to leave the Democratic Party is called the Exodus. Oh, wow. It wasn't a Jew that thought that one up. Really. Of course, on the other hand, is Stephen Miller really a Jew? Not a real one. The Exodus movement encouraged Jewish people to leave the Democratic Party, Trump tweeted in March. Total disrespect. Republicans are waiting with open arms. Remember Jerusalem, the U.S. Embassy, and the horrible Iran nuclear deal. But that effort has failed spectacularly. Despite Trump's efforts to claim Democrats hate Jewish people, the poll found that there has been no increase in the number of American Jews who identify as Republicans. But even more, the poll also found that American Jews overwhelmingly disapprove of Trump and blame him, not the Democrats, for the rise of anti-Semitism and the deadly attacks on synagogues that the country has suffered since Trump took office. Nearly 3/4 of American Jews, or 71%, disapprove of how Trump has handled the rise of anti-Semitism, while nearly 60% say that Trump bears at least some responsibility for the shootings at synagogues in Pittsburgh and Poway. And that was I know they say Poway. It's Poway. The Jewish American electorate remains overwhelmingly opposed to Trump, motivated largely by the Jewish community's positions on domestic policy issues. And that was written in a summary of its poll findings. These include immigration and health care, as well as concerns about rising anti-Semitism, gun violence, and the rise of white nationalism, which respondents attribute to President Trump. Trump, for his part, has sought to win over Jews with his Israeli policy, moving the American embassy in Israel to from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and siding with Israel's far-right Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. But the poll found that Israel is simply not a voting priority for American Jews because pretty much they hate Netanyahu. And they also know that moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem is more than rattling a saber. Way more. Jewish American voters, including millennials, prioritize domestic policy issues that impact their lives, including health care, anti-Semitism, and growing insecurity among American Jews, the poll memo stated. A candidate's stance on Israel is of relatively low importance to Jewish voters as they determine which candidate to support in the 2020 election. Now, Emily Singer sums up with, ultimately, American Jews see through Trump's vile smear campaign against Democrats and show no signs of joining his coalition in 2020. So you can put a fork in the Jaxodus movement, Emily sums up here again. It's not only done, it never even got started. All right, thank you, Emily. Let's get on to our break now, and when we come back from the break, we're going to go through weather from around the world, and we're going to finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, Middle Earth, or at least Middle Ground. Released most likely coincidentally with the culmination of the Game of Thrones phenomenon, the movie Tolkien takes us back to where it all started, as it's a fair conjecture that without his Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, interest in fantasy at the level we've seen may not have ever happened. Tolkien is a biopic, a necessarily fraught formula. This one picks up with the action in the bloody trenches of World War I, a known influence on the author, and returns there frequently as we are familiarized with his early life, which includes being orphaned at an early age with a brother who somehow disappears from the narrative here. We see him form a circle of friends at school, meet his love interest, and witness his budding affinity for language. Into all this, director Dom Karokowski, a major Tolkien fan himself, carefully weaves in subtle and not-so-subtle references from the literary works, which were met with satisfied-sounding sighs, at least from the audience I was with. How this really helps the movie, though, is another question. Tolkien's friends may have been a fellowship. Edith, his love interest, probably was enamored of Wagner's Ring cycle, and those scenes are among the movie's best for different reasons. And maybe the trenches did inspire Mordor, but after the third or fourth apparition in Battlefield Smoke, we have the idea. Though the acting from Nicholas Hoult as the lead and Lily Collins as Edith is first class, the period composition exquisite, and the direction impeccable, the characters feel truncated and developed only as far as necessary to keep the stream of life-to-works parallels going. Ultimately, Tolkien is a movie for fans, and if you are one, it will add to your knowledge of this beloved figure, and all without you having to worry if it'll win any awards. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our page on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Christopher Intagliata. A few years ago, scientists determined that our thermostats are sexist. Namely, that office climates had been optimized for a hypothetical room full of 40-year-old, 150-pound men, using standards developed more than 50 years ago. And that ends up leaving a lot of women in the cold.
It's called the battle of the thermostat, right?
Tom Chang, a behavioral economist at the USC Marshall School of Business. He says it goes beyond comfort for women.
It seems that it's not just a matter of comfort, but it also affects their productivity.
Chang and his colleague tested that link between temperature and performance by quizzing 543 German students on basic addition skills and word scrambles in rooms that varied from 60 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
And if you went from, let's say, the low 60s to the mid 70s, you saw an increase in female performance of almost 15%, 1-5, not 5-0, which I found remarkably large, as much larger than I had expected.
The effects tapered off after the mid 70s. But men, on the other hand, had a small decrease in performance, about 3%, as temperatures rose to the mid 70s. The results are in the journal PLOS ONE. And there's a chance these findings might explain things like disparities in test scores on the SAT.
The long-standing gap in performance between high school boys and high school girls on the math portion of the SAT is approximately 4%. So given the effect size we're finding, that's 3 degrees difference in indoor temperature.
Still, he says,
I wouldn't go running off writing policy off of one study.
But it seems Cynthia Nixon had the thermostat dialed in just right last year. The actor-turned-politician was preparing to debate Andrew Cuomo as they vied for the Democratic nomination for New York State governor. Debate venues are usually kept pretty chilly, but she requested a more balmy and perhaps cognitively friendly 76 degrees. Thanks for listening. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Christopher Intagliata.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In 2017, approximately 1 in 6 high school students reported a sports or physical activity-related concussion. Immediate symptoms of a concussion include headache, nausea, and double vision. Long-term, the effects of such injuries, particularly those that are more severe, can be life-changing. Healthcare providers, coaches, trainers, and parents should be aware of the symptoms of a concussion and how to treat them. A concussion protocol should be developed that includes withholding an athlete from practice and competition until all symptoms are resolved. While concussions cannot always be prevented, they can be treated in a way that decreases the chances of long-term health problems. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Pools, water parks, and other recreational water venues are popular places to relax and stay cool, but they can be sources of serious illness. Since 2000, nearly 500 outbreaks have been reported at recreational water venues in the U.S., resulting in over 27,000 illnesses and 8 deaths. Most were caused by parasites, bacteria, viruses, or certain chemicals in the water. Parents with young children who have diarrhea should not allow their children to swim or play in the water. In addition, bathers should check the inspection scores of pools and water parks and can conduct mini inspections using test strips before getting in the water. A few simple precautions can allow you to share the fun, not the germs. Thank you for joining us on A Minute of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Quote, the Russian government interfered in the 2016 presidential election in sweeping and systematic fashion. Who said that?
Listen up. This matters. I'm Louis Black, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
That would be the same person who said that Russia interfered by carrying out, quote, a social media campaign that favored presidential candidate Donald J. Trump and disparaged presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, and by utilizing, quote, a Russian intelligence service that conducted computer intrusion operations against entities, employees, and volunteers working on the Clinton campaign, and then released stolen documents, end quote. The same person who said that the Russian entity called IRA, the Internet Research Agency, conducted, quote, a social media campaign designed to provoke and amplify political and social discord in the United States. And then went on to say, in total, that Russian agency, quote, controlled accounts that made over 80,000 posts, which may have reached an estimated 126 million people, according to Facebook. The person who said all this is the special counsel Robert Mueller. So when we think about what is necessary to protect American democracy in 2020 and beyond, we thought it useful to hear what the special counsel actually found.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union because freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1883. The eighth wonder of the world, the Brooklyn Bridge, opened for traffic. 600 men worked on the project, which took 14 years to complete. Between 20 and 30 men died working on the bridge. This included the bridge's designer, German-born John A. Roebling. Roebling was visiting the site, taking compass readings, when his foot was accidentally crushed. And although his toes were amputated, he later died of tetanus. Some of the most harrowing work for the project had to be completed under the East River. The bridge's stone towers were to stand on top of caissons. These were wooden boxes with no bottoms that would be filled with concrete. Men known as sandhogs had the job of digging until they hit bedrock to rest the caissons. The underwater boxes were dimly lit by gaslights. If the sandhogs came up too quickly, they risked getting the bends. A 15-year-old Irish immigrant described the work saying, when the air was fully compressed, the door of the airlock opened at a touch, and we all went down to work with pick and shovel on the gravelly bottom. My headache soon became acute. The 6 of us were working naked to the waist in a small iron chamber with a temperature of about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. In 5 minutes, the sweat was pouring from us, and all the while we were standing in icy water that was only kept from rising by the terrific air pressure. No wonder the headaches were blinding. Due to this incredible labor, the bridge finally opened. In the first 24 hours, 150,000 people crossed the new bridge. More than 125 years later, the Brooklyn Bridge still stands as one of the most iconic man-made structures in the U.S. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
I read the news today, oh boy.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
The taunting between Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi and the man occupying the Oval Office continued on Thursday.
Pelosi's talk of an intervention for Trump and her comments voicing concern for his well-being seem to have gotten under his orange skin.
He was not prepared, and so he used some excuse to go out the door. Who's in charge here? Because you agree, and then all of a sudden something changes. What goes on there? Who's in charge? I pray for the President of the United States. I wish that his family or his administration or his staff would have an intervention for the good of the country. Maybe he wants to take a leave of absence. I don't know. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Trump hijacked his own White House event in which he was announcing a $16 billion bailout to farmers hurt by his trade war with China to push back on Pelosi's assertion that he had a temper tantrum during their brief meeting on Wednesday. So he went around the room calling on various aides to vouch for his temperament. After having Kellyanne Conway, Mercedes Schlapp, Larry Kudlow, Hogan Gidley, and Sarah Sanders all claim he was, quote, calm, Trump went on to repeat a claim he had previously made about himself.
I'm an extremely stable genius.
Seriously. Trump continued attacking Pelosi on Twitter throughout the day, tweeting out a doctored video of awkward moments from her presser held earlier Thursday, deceptively edited and aired by Fox with the statement, Pelosi stammers through news conference. This, while another fake video of Pelosi, slowed down to make her appear drunk or otherwise impaired, went viral on social media, advancing Trump's new claim that, quote, Pelosi is unwell. Oy. Congress is now on its Memorial Day recess. The Senate returns June 3rd, the House June 4th. Donald Trump is also gone, departing for Japan on Friday. Before the Senate left for their Memorial Day recess, they cleared a disaster relief package, which the House immediately said it would pass and send to the president for his signature. Meanwhile, Trump is pushing back against the Democrats' investigations by demanding that the Department of Justice investigate the origins of the Mueller probe, or as Trump puts it.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges of the investigation, the beginnings of that investigation about the Mueller report. The Mueller report, I wish, covered the oranges, how it started, the beginnings of the investigation, how it started.
In a disturbing move regarding an already troubling investigation by a sitting president of those he considers his political opponents, Trump ordered the CIA and other intelligence agencies to cooperate with the review. He also granted Attorney General Barr the authority to unilaterally declassify their documents. The move, which occurred just hours after the president again declared that those who led the investigation committed treason, gave Barr immense leverage over the intelligence community and enormous power over what the public learns about the roots of the Russia investigation. An emotional Theresa May announced her resignation Friday. Fighting back tears, May said she'll leave office on June 7th, sparking a contest to succeed her. That date also allows her to remain in power for Donald Trump's upcoming state visit. May said she had done her best to honor the EU referendum result and that it was a matter of deep regret that she had been unable to deliver Brexit.
Our politics may be under strain, but there is so much that is good about this country, so much to be proud of, so much to be optimistic about. I will shortly leave the job that it has been the honour of my life to hold. The second female Prime Minister, but certainly not the last. I do so with no ill will, but with enormous and enduring gratitude to have had the opportunity to serve the country I love.
May's been Prime Minister since 2016 when David Cameron resigned after a majority voted for Britain to leave the EU. Stunningly, former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson is currently party members' favorite to succeed her. Oy. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been indicted on 17 counts of violating the Espionage Act for his role in obtaining and publishing secret military and diplomatic documents in 2010. Despite the debate about whether or not Assange was operating as a journalist, the new charges do threaten to criminalize legitimate journalistic practices by questioning the legality of basic news gathering techniques used every day by journalists, like asking for news tips. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler said in an MSNBC interview Thursday night that Special Counsel Robert Mueller wants to testify in private about his investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential elections.
He wants to testify in private.
Why?
I don't know why. He's willing to make an opening statement, but he wants to testify in private. We think it's important for the American people to hear from him and to hear his answers to questions about the report.
Does he want to testify in private and have it be a closed session where we, the people, would not even get to see a transcript of it?
No. We'd see a transcript, but we'd see a transcript.
And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. For more, visit NicoleSandler.com/donate.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit. We are expecting a high of around 75, an overnight low of, maybe around 50. Currently, winds are negligible. They will be shifting out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour in a few hours. We'll have sun and clouds mixed. I think we might call that partly cloudy or partly sunny. And then partly cloudy skies tonight with an increasing chance of rain for tomorrow, actually. It looks like it may be starting earlier. We had forecasts of rain for Sunday, starting on Sunday and going into Monday, but it looks like we're expecting, just about a quarter of an inch tomorrow and maybe a third of an inch on Sunday and then somewhat less on Monday. Well. The grass pollen is rated at very high. The air quality index is 27 parts per million in the good range, and the daytime UV index is rated very high at 8. So anybody in this area, or if you have 8 in your UV index, put on some sunscreen, wear a hat. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 29.81 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles, and relative humidity is at 80%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 70 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 76 and partly cloudy with a advisory for thunderstorms that could cause electrical outages in Paris. Rome is just refreshed. We have now gone up in Rome's temperature from 72. They are now 74 degrees Fahrenheit and fair. Kiev is 77 and fair. Kabul is 65 degrees and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 76 and mostly cloudy. Tokyo is 71 degrees and clear. Sydney, Australia is 60 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York is 72 degrees Fahrenheit and a small craft advisory on the waterways in the Big Apple, so do take care. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Libya's Coast Guard rescued 290 migrants clinging to inflatable rafts on Friday in two operations near the capital of Tripoli. A naval forces spokesman said, they weren't clinging to overturned craft, but to inflatable rafts, whatever that means. The western coast of Libya is the main departure point of hundreds of thousands of migrants fleeing their countries from wars and poverty to reach the shores of Italy. A Coast Guard vessel rescued 87 migrants off the town of Karabuli, about 31 miles east of Tripoli, on an inflatable boat. And the Coast Guard is part of Libya's Navy. Another group of 203 migrants were rescued from two inflatable boats off Zlitin, a town about 100 miles east of the capital. The migrants were found clinging to shabby and broken boats. They were rescued by patrols and Coast Guards on two different vessels, authorities said. The migrants have been handed over to Anti-Illegal Migration Department after they were disembarked at two cities of Khomas and Janzour. And they are from different Arab and sub-Saharan countries, including 7 women and a child. After an Italy-backed deal, the number of crossings has sharply dropped since July of 2017, when human traffickers were expelled by an armed group from a smuggling hub of Sabratha city in western Tripoli. The oil-rich North African country plunged into chaos after 8 years of NATO-backed uprising that ousted the long rule of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Stephen Scherer of Reuters brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau apologized and posthumously exonerated a Cree chief unjustly imprisoned for treason more than 130 years ago. The Liberal Prime Minister received widespread support from Canada's First Nations when he ran for office 4 years ago, promising to reconcile Canada with the Native peoples wronged during the country's colonial past. Chief Poundmaker was a Cree leader during Canada's Northwest Rebellion of 1885. I'm unable to pronounce his proper name, so excuse me. Look at the link. Historians have said he helped prevent a massacre of federal soldiers during a battle with primarily French-speaking rebels who were descendants of First Nation and European settlers. But when the rebellion ended and Poundmaker sought peace with the government, he was arrested, accused of treason, and jailed for 7 months before being released because of bad health in 1886, and he died shortly afterwards. We recognize that during his lifetime, Chief Poundmaker was not treated justly nor showed the respect he deserved as a leader of his people, Trudeau said during the ceremony at the Poundmaker Cree Nation Reserve in Saskatchewan. It is my sincere hope that by coming together today and taking this important step together as equal partners, we can continue the important work of reconciling the past and renewing our relationship. Trudeau was escorted to the stage by Cree members in traditional clothing and headdresses amid ceremonial singing and drumming, and traditional Cree teepees were set up around the stage where he spoke. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and for the week, but you know the Netroots Radio is going to broadcast on. And we're going to meet up on Monday. Yes, it'll be a holiday, but we're going to be here for River City Hash Mondays, so stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here on Monday, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, l'âge tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, l'âge tendre. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.